you talk about that loneliness and what it feels
Mhm.
like in that. Can you touch a little bit about how that resonated with you, how you felt in some of your experiences?
So I'll give you an example. This is not classified in any way, shape, or form, but when I was at Consulate General Jerusalem, our guard posts have both an Israeli Hebrew speaker and a Palestinian Arabic speaker, because both of those groups have groups in it that hate America. So at every guard post, you'll have two of them. And the consulate person who's head of security wanted to arm the guards, but the Israeli foreign ministry was only going to allow us to arm the Israelis, not arm the Palestinians. And I was really angry about that,
Yeah.
because I had regular employee relations issues between these two people at the guard posts regularly. I had Stars of David, I had Nazi symbols, I had all of those things.
Mm-hmm.
And so I was regularly dealing with the employee relations part of that. And then he wanted to add a gun to it. I was like, don't be dumb. Like
Yeah.
this didn't make sense to me. And so as a human resources professional, I can't be out there publicly saying you can't have a gun here. Like
Mm-hmm.
I can't be, employees can't see me doing that. But
Mm-hmm.
I have to advocate on their behalf internally. I have to go up my chain, or in this case, go to Washington and try to get as many people to see what I saw as a big problem. And so part of my job in human resources was to isolate myself from the people that I serve, quote unquote,
Mm-hmm.
serve, but also go toe to toe with the head of security, to go toe to toe with people in Washington who thought this was important. And so that is isolating advocacy work, but that's the role of HR, is to protect these people that I serve, but also to advocate up on their behalf. So it can be really isolating. It can be really frustrating sometimes.
Mm-hmm.
But when you succeed and you know it's the right thing to do, then hopefully it works out that way. And in this case, shortly after my departure from Post, I had been a big brouhaha about it. Shortly after my departure from Post, the head of security left, and the new one was like, she was right, man. We can't have a gun here. So it went away. So, even if I just delayed the policy for a bit, it still resolved it in a way that kept my employees safe. That's how I looked at it.
Wow. And well, what's interesting is you're you're constantly the bearer of bad news. It
Mm-hmm.
feels like,
Yeah.
but it shouldn't have to be that way. And
No.
I get that, and I know this could be a little. This sometimes it gets the idealism of HR, but in those moments, what are the best ways that, or what did you get out of it? What did you learn out of it? The whole situation.
Well, I learned more about how to effectively advocate for my folks. Like I had tried a bunch of different ways to get attention to this, and also, how to persuade individuals. Like I'm pretty perceptive as to figure out who has the unofficial authority in an organization. Sometimes it's the executive assistant to the CEO has all of the power. And,
Mm-hmm.
if you want the CEO's attention, you have to go through his EA. And
Mm-hmm.
it gets really easy to, try to figure out how to navigate that relationship, because if you have a good one, things will be going smooth. If you don't,
Right.
so I'm pretty perceptive of figuring out who has that unofficial kind of
Mm-hmm.
authority within the organization. And that the situation I mentioned at ConGen was, who has that authority, kind of figuring
Right.
that out. So even when I'm doing an investigation and I'm trying to figure out if harassment occurred or what led to this allegation happening, even if the actual harassment isn't what happened, like there's still something going on that led
Mm-hmm.
to someone thinking that this allegation was appropriate. So I'm looking for who are the bastions of power that don't have the title, who can influence the next steps for good or bad.
Mm-hmm.
If this person, doesn't respect process, doesn't respect authority, and is, stirring the pot all the time, I can identify that person and say, this person is not great for your organization. They're just creating more mess. Or if this person is a really solid manager, but constantly gets dumped on, I can go then say my recommendations are, you recognize how great of a manager this person is, and you reward that. So that was something I learned from that situation, is to figure out who those people are and get them into your sphere of influence so that you know how to navigate difficult advocacy waters. And I don't think that's a skill that everyone has, but I think it's something you can develop from perception.
No, it certainly isn't, and I think that's the one thing, and it has a lot of critical thinking in there because it's so strategic. Now it's sad,
Mm-hmm.
that we have to be that strategic, but I often worry that in human resources, the way that I have seen it become is this more of the lack of the critical thinking that it takes to go into those strategies. I
Mm-hmm.
think they think too HRy and not strategically. It becomes a little too what is proper and what is by the
Oh,
book, and it's not, you know working with human is not, there is no by the book a lot of times.
most definitely not. And I don't have the book. I've seen the book. I don't like the book. I don't refer to the book. I look
Okay.
at what is the normal human response to this
Right.
situation. What would likely be this person's response if I put him in this scenario? Would they
Mm-hmm.
be able to succeed? In part, have they been beat down so much they don't have the confidence to necessarily succeed here?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it that they've been undermined? Like I look at the perspective of how is someone going to be a productive, valued, respected person, and then
Mm-hmm.
try to figure out how we can maneuver the situation so that
Mm-hmm.
they feel vindicated by that in many ways. And that's
Mm-hmm.
HR. Like HR is most of the time, and while I hate this phrase, most of the time is, are the right people in the right seats? Are we getting recognition to the right people who deserve it? Or do we
Mm-hmm.
only glorify the favorites of an organization? So I think from a fundamental level, we're getting
Mm-hmm.
the right people in the right roles, and we're making sure that they're recognized when they do well.